Ladies and gentlemen, Republicans have suffered a completely humiliating defeat last night, losing really badly their attempt to recall Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom and to replace him with there was really only one person who might have replaced Newsom if the vote had gone yes on recall rather than no. And that is the absolutely radical Republican named Larry Elder. Now, we're going to go through some different aspects of this story here, but the big narrative is mostly right wingers in California, despite claims that the left also isn't happy with Gavin Newsom. Some Democrats not happy with Gavin Newsom, but by and large, mostly the right wing of California, many of them pro-Trump, decided to try to remove the governor, Gavin Newsom. The top alternative was a Republican named Larry Elder, who agrees with Donald Trump on 99% of everything. The only disagreement I was able to find between Larry Elder and Donald Trump was that Larry Elder didn't like the Chinese tariffs that Donald Trump put in place. But beyond that, this was a guy who was not only pro-Trump, but in some cases even beyond Trump, saying he would end every mask requirement if he were to become governor. He would end every vaccine requirement if he were to become governor. He has a long history of deranged political statements, misogynistic statements, homophobic statements, racist statements even. And he got absolutely crushed. In terms of the first question, the recalls are a two-part question. The first question is, should Governor Newsom be recalled? 70% reporting this morning. Mail-in ballots left to be counted, but 64% of voters said no, Newsom should not be recalled. Basically a 2-1 loss for those seeking to remove Gavin Newsom. I mean, just a resounding and humiliating defeat. Now, had the recall gone yes, remove Gavin Newsom, then it would have gone to the second question, and it would have been Larry Elder who became the governor of California. Elder got 47% of the question 2 vote, followed by friend of the show, Kevin Paffrath, who ran as a Democrat, called into the live stream we did last night. Nice guy, although my position all along has been just vote no, do not recall Gavin Newsom. So it was going to be Larry Elder if Newsom didn't stay. Now, this is a major bullet dodged and a major humiliation for Republicans. And this is also, to some degree, a referendum on Trumpism. This entire take them out attitude, replace them with a pro-Trump Republican. This is to some degree a signal about the power of Trumpism, which may be, we don't know yet. The power of Trumpism may be diminishing. We won't really know until November of 2022, but it is a good sign that this movement failed and failed so miserably at attempting to replace the sitting Democratic governor with a Trumpian lunatic Republican in Larry Elder. Now, what exactly happened here? How did this all end up the way it ended up? Well, remember that early on, and we have the polling a trajectory for this race up on the screen now for people who are watching. Early on, there was a long period of time, about 3 full weeks in August, where the polling was almost completely tied. And we were worried about that. It wasn't too close. It was tied between keep and remove Gavin Newsom. But 2 different things were going on. First, in a recall, the people wanting the recall are often more engaged for a period of time. Since everybody else is just living their lives, they're not looking to be involved in a recall. This isn't a scheduled election. And so as more and more Californians learned about the recall and its paramount importance, you saw more and more say, no, I'm actually going to get involved. I'm a likely voter now, and I want to keep Gavin Newsom. Secondly, the most important issue for recall voters was COVID. And so as Larry Elder explained, he said, I would get rid of every guideline around COVID. As Delta grew in August, Larry Elder's cartoonish position on COVID only helped Gavin Newsom even more. And ultimately, it went very much in Gavin Newsom's favor. Let's look at a couple of different clips. Here is Fox News eventually calling it. I think this was after 1 a.m. Dave Wasserman called this at like 11:15 Eastern time. I think this was like around 1 a.m. This was Fox News calling it last night.
Now, Steve, stand by because the Associated Press has now just called it. You see the numbers on the bottom of your screen. You see the check mark there, 67.3, 32. Yes, that means that Gavin Newsom will not be recalled. The Associated Press has now called it. You've got 58% of the vote in.
There it is. And actually, that may have been earlier. And then Larry Elder eventually came out and spoke. This may have been around 1 a.m. Eastern. Elder finally saying, "We may have lost the battle, but we have not lost the war."
Let's be gracious. Let's be gracious in defeat. And by the way, we may have lost the battle, but we are going to win the war.
So at the end of the day, this was just a bad idea. And it was an expenditure of political capital for doing nothing other than being resoundingly defeated and spending more than $250 million to do this. This optional recall election, which wasn't even close. There was no shot at removing Gavin Newsom. $250 million. The very same people complaining about profligate government spending acted to spend $250 million on an election that ended up humiliating them and also was completely unnecessary. Now, there are some right wingers who are turning around and saying this failed because California's full of stupid liberals. Just get out of California. And Ben Shapiro basically tweeted as much last night saying, quote, "The failure of the California recall is a reminder to Republicans still in the state. The decline is now inexorable. Get out while the getting is good and move to a purple or red state. Your life will radically improve." Well, that's fine. And let's see if people do it. We have freedom of movement in the United States between states. The California exodus that they've been claiming is going on for a long time hasn't actually been going on. And they also, for being free marketeers, they seem to miss the fact that the reason, in part, that things are expensive in California is because there's a lot of demand to live in California in those parts. Much of California is actually dirt cheap if you get away from the popular areas on the coast and some inland cities. There's a lot of California that is really, really cheap. Why is it so expensive to live in Santa Barbara, a tiny city of 90,000 people, versus, just to pick a place with a similar population, Parma, Ohio? Maybe you've never heard of Parma, Ohio. Maybe you have. The reason Santa Barbara is more expensive is because more people want to live in Santa Barbara because it's nicer with better schools, access to better airports, better infrastructure, and California ranks 5th in healthcare compared to Ohio at 37th. This is the market. Because more people want to live in Santa Barbara than in Parma, that drives prices up because there's a limited supply of housing and space and jobs in Santa Barbara. If the politics of California disgust people and they move out, demand will go down and it'll get cheaper. And wherever those people go, demand will go up and it will get more expensive. If all the people wanting to live in Santa Barbara go and live in Parma, Ohio will become more expensive. I don't know if healthcare will get any better, maybe over time with additional tax revenue, who knows? But this is sort of like the way the market works. And these people seem to very much not understand it. So a disaster for Republicans in California. Let's hope it's a sign of things to come in the 2022 midterms. But House races in Florida are very different than a recall election in a full state election like California. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. One of our sponsors is CuriosityStream, the only subscription streaming service that focuses exclusively on documentaries. If you love documentaries the way I do, you're missing out if you don't have a subscription to CuriosityStream. I love it for one reason. It has the biggest, best selection of documentaries that you'll find anywhere, including the newest popular ones that everybody's talking about. And most of it is stuff you really can't find on other streaming services. Last month, they added a ton of great new documentaries to the library. One I watched is Brimstone and Glory, about a pyrotechnic festival in Mexico. Random, but fascinating. CuriosityStream is giving my audience 25% off, meaning you can subscribe for just $15 a year. Not a big price tag relative to the hours and hours of enjoyment I know you will get from CuriosityStream. Just go to curiositystream.com/Pacman. The link is right underneath this video.